Hello and welcome to the Video Tourist. In this series I'm going to be cycling around some of New York City's more amazing neighbourhoods and pointing out to you nearly everything they have to offer. Once the location of massive open-air markets and warehouses for produce, textiles and dry goods, Tribeca is now home to one of New York City's trendiest neighbourhoods, with high-end restaurants and galleries alongside celebrity homes and historic architecture on cobblestone streets. So stay right there and let's see what's coming up on today's show. Now jumping right in, we are at the marina beside Pier 25 on the west side of Manhattan. And up first, looking south, we find New York Harbor. And way off in the distance, we see the Statue of Liberty sitting out there on Liberty Island. Next, we have the Sherman's Wicker, a historic wooden schooner built in the 1942 to trawl the turbulent Grand Banks fishing grounds off Newfoundland. The largest wooden vessel docked in New York City, it is now the permanent home of the award-winning Grand Banks Oyster Bar, with a seasonal seafood menu that includes wild caught and sustainably harvested East and West Coast oysters. Across the Hudson River we see Jersey City and the great state of New Jersey. The river was named after Henry Hudson, an Englishman who first sailed up it in 1609 searching for the fabled Northwest Passage to Asia. Now this is an appropriate location for the Grand Banks Oyster Bar, because at one time in the 17th century the 350 square miles of oyster beds in New York Harbor were estimated to contain half of all the world's oysters. By the 19th century, New York City was considered the oyster capital of the world, with the seafood being eaten by all levels of society. But by 1927 the last of these beds were shut down due to pollution and over-harvesting. But today the oyster beds are back, thriving, under the tide deck over there at the end of Pier 26, after the creation of the Billion Oyster Project in 2014, which has been reintroducing live oyster beds into the city's rivers with the goal of adding 1 billion oysters to New York's waterways by 2035. On our right, I'm not surprised the turf field is quiet today. It's a Saturday in mid-July and the feel-like temperature right now is over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And on our left, across the water, we have Pier 26, which has been designed to be an ecological pier. All the trees and plants we see are indigenous to the area and would have grown here 400 years ago, when only Native Americans lived on the island. Now the piers along the west side here have an extensive range of activities, and next we have one of the more interesting ones. Again, quiet today because of the heat. We have Pier 25's beach volleyball courts, which are one of the coolest amenities on the pier. At 985 feet, Pier 25 is the longest of over a dozen public piers that make up the Hudson River Park, a 550-acre park that stretches from here to up beyond Hell's Kitchen, about 4 miles to the north. Up ahead we see Manhattan's only 18-hole miniature golf course, and it contains some cool features like waterfalls, a pond and footbridges. Next to the golf we find the Lilac, America's last remaining steam-powered lighthouse tender. Listed on the National Register of Historic Places, this Coast Guard cutter was built in 1933 to supply lighthouses along the US coast. Today it is a museum ship undergoing restoration and is open to the public for free tours and exhibits every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 6 p.m. until about October. It is to the Lilac that I've come to meet my good friend, the New Hampshire artist Sadie Seacamp. How are you, Sadie? Sadie has painted this wonderful map in watercolour depicting the route that I'm going to be cycling today. Pause the video now if you'd like to print the map from the website, so you can mark off any places that interest you. Perfect, Sadie, thank you. See you later. Next, I'm going to show you a video of the route I'm cycling today to give you a better idea of what is coming up. We are starting on the lower west side of Manhattan, between the financial district to the south and the West Village to the north, where we see a great view of Piers 25 and 26. From here we head into Tribeca proper, bringing you past the oldest houses on Canal Street. Then we head south down Greenwich Street to a very popular building for celebrity homes. Continuing through Tribeca to the famous Harris Street row houses. Before finishing up near Duane Street Park, one of the city's oldest parks. Now, I understand many of my viewers may be watching from abroad and may be learning English, so in this series I will be speaking as slowly, clearly and as grammatically correct as I possibly can. If you wish, enable the closed captions for this video, because they are perfectly aligned with what I am saying. Moving on, we see where Pier 25's bathrooms are located. And down beyond the bathrooms is where we find an excellent skate park and a basketball court. Next, we have Pier 26's 4,000 square foot marine science focused science playground, which has these cool play structures in the shape of two endangered sturgeon species native to the Hudson River, the Atlantic in blue and the short-nosed sturgeon in orange. The playground is made possible because of the contributions by these fine groups and individuals, including the big fish at the top, the Novogratz family. Now, carefully crossing the bike path, I'm going to turn to give you a good look at the Borough of Manhattan Community College. The brown building beyond the trees across the West Side Highway is better known as BMCC, and it has a student body of approximately 30,000, with great views of the World Trade Center and the waterfront. I'll tell you more about the BMCC when I pass by it in about 15 minutes. One last look at a very cool playground. Let's just make our way onto the bike path here first. Moving on, I am now on part of the 13-mile Hudson River Greenway, which allows you to run or cycle from the Battery at the southern tip of Manhattan up the West Side waterfront to Inwood at the island's northern point. Now, turning left here, we're going to visit Pier 26 next. Now, the first place I want to show you is City Vineyard, a popular wine bar, music venue and rooftop garden where you can sample some of their wines produced at their very own winery about 2 miles north of here at Pier 55, which is one of the only wineries in New York City. It has an amazing rooftop and a stunning view of the waterfront. As I explained earlier, Pier 26 is an ecologically designed space, with the layout of the pier including a walk through small native habitats such as a woodland forest, a coastal grassland, a maritime shrub, and a huge human-engineered rocky salt marsh at the end of the pier called the Tide Deck. There are also guided tours conducted by the Hudson River Park staff, or you can just get to this map and figure the whole thing out all by yourself. Good vibes here. Let there be rosé is the motto. Here we have the Downtown Boathouse. Established in 1994, the Boathouse is an all-volunteer, non-profit organisation that provides public access to New York Harbour through kayaking programs. Open during the summer months, Tuesday and Thursday evenings, and daytime on Saturday and Sunday. They believe they have launched 500,000 people onto the Hudson and East Rivers, and all of them for free. Very popular. Off in the distance we see our first celebrity residence. That cream coloured building has past and present condo owners that include NFL star Tom Brady, Brazilian model Gisele Bündchen and Formula 1 driver Lewis Hamilton. We'll get a closer look at 70 Vestry in a few minutes. Coming back to the promenade, straight ahead we have Pier 26's dog run. That looks pretty cool. Wow, look at all those kayakers. If you're visiting with children, this looks like a fun activity. Now, give me a minute to just get through here. The very cool tower located way out there at the end of Pier 34 is part of the ventilation system for the Holland Tunnel, buried deep under the river here. All of the air of this 1.6 mile tunnel gets vented every 90 seconds. Beyond that, we can see the I Want to Thank You mural, which was installed on Pier 40 in 2019 by the internationally recognised street artist and local resident Stephen Powers. Okay, let's head back up to the highway, passing on the left a very nice shaded picnic area. Now we're coming up to Joe DiMaggio Highway. Carefully crossing the bike path here. Named after the New York Yankees legendary slugger, is better known to New Yorkers as the West Side Highway. And across on the corner of Lay Street we have a New York City landmark. The old United States Sugar Building was built in 1853 in the utilitarian style to store sugar, and is probably the oldest such building to survive in the city. Those iron shutters on the bottom floors were needed as sugar is a dangerously flammable product. On that note, whenever I show you something of interest, the graphic on the upper left will give you its name, the year it was completed, in what style and by whose design. If it's a landmark, the name will be in green. Right, let me tell you a little bit more about West Side Highway. This 6 to 8 lane thoroughfare is the most important north-south artery for Manhattan's West Side. Opened in 2001, just months before the 9/11 attacks, the highway was instrumental in the quick evacuation of downtown Manhattan on that fateful day. On the right here we have a Wonder Bar, a popular boutique Pilates studio, and next to that we find a veterinary hospital, Ivy Pets. Now let me explain the rest of the graphics at the top of your screen. As I'm cycling, the white name in the center is the street that I'm on, the red name on the left is the street that's behind me, and the green name on the right is the street I'm approaching. Right, turning right onto Vestry, we are coming up to the celebrity residence I just spoke about. This is 70 Vestry, which along with having been home to Brady, Gisele Bündchen and Lewis Hamilton, is also the reported New York City residence for the NBA star Kevin Love of the Utah Jazz, The Daily Show's host Trevor Noah, and the American actress Minka Kelly. Let's just have a closer look at the entrance into the private courtyard. You're not going to get very far in there, so I'm just going to keep moving on. Now we're entering Tribeca proper, so time for a little bit of history. After the opening of the Erie Canal in 1825, which connected New York to the country's interior, the city soon became America's leading commercial hub and trading center. At this time, the neighborhood, along with other West Side neighborhoods, began to rapidly industrialize. In the 1830s, the city constructed piers at the end of every street from here to King Street, 8 blocks to the north. On the right here is Charles Moffitt Gallery, which specializes in contemporary art. All of the massive influx of trade from these new piers had to go somewhere, and that's when a lot of the buildings we're going to see now were constructed to be warehouses and factories, with this area becoming particularly known for its textile and printing industries. That is Hotel Baviera Fouquet's, New York. I'll tell you more about that shortly. On the corner we have Coffee Project New York, and next door we have an ice cream parlor, the Big Gay Ice Cream. This was the excellent restaurant The Greek, but it closed just in the last couple of weeks. Here in the corner we find the historic Fleming Smith Warehouse, which is on the National Register of Historic Places. Let me just turn here to show you this New York City landmark. The Fleming Smith was completed in 1892 in a Romanesque revival and Neo-Flemish styles. Originally a storehouse for wine and a shoe factory, would you believe? Oh, I nearly forgot. The ground floor is also where you'll find Maxwell Social, one of New York City's members-only social clubs. Now we're coming up to the street that gives the neighborhood its name. Tribeca is an acronym that stands for the Triangle Below Canal. But before it got this moniker in the 1970s, this whole part of the West Side was known for 150 years as the Washington Market. Opened by the city in 1812, this massive Washington Market, which pretty much covers most of the area I'm going to be cycling through today, became by the 1880s New York City's #1 wholesale and retail produce destination. The Tribeca tradition of adverts being hand-painted on the side of buildings continues today with this wallscape for Paul Richard. Across Canal Street we see Canal Park, officially recognised since 1686 as one of the city's first public spaces. Although it is a historic park, there is way too much traffic on all sides of it, so it is quite loud. Now we're on Canal Street, named after an early 19th century canal that once ran nearly the full width of Manhattan and was dug to drain the swamps that were slowing New York City's northern expansion. Soon after the canal was filled in 1819, a local merchant tailor built these Federal style homes here on the right. These are the oldest houses on Canal Street. Now 508, the one with the red awning, is our first hotel per se. It is the home of the Canal Park Inn, a small 4-room, lower middle range family run bed and breakfast with a cool nostalgic decor. To our north is the neighbourhood of Hudson Square, and if you continue down Canal Street we will pass Soho, Little Italy and Chinatown in that order. We are on Greenwich Street, which historically was the main north-south thoroughfare along the western side of the island, and beginning in the late 19th century, the blocks on both sides to the east and to the west were developed, with commercial buildings we see here designed to be warehouses and store and loft buildings, with those in the block coming up catering to tea and coffee wholesalers. On the corner here we have a city bike station. Visitors can buy a 24-hour day pass for $25, which gives you unlimited 30-mile rides during that time. Passes can be bought from the City Bike app or from this kiosk right here. This is a great way to see the city. We are passing a dry cleaners. And down from that we have the Spa of Tranquility, best known for their authentic Korean body scrub. And next door is Estacia 460, a farmhouse designed Argentinian restaurant that has a menu that reflects the Italian and Spanish culinary influences in Argentina. It opens shortly. Beside that, with the same owners, is the North Bar, which is named after the original Dutch name for the Hudson River. Moving on, we get to our second hotel. This is Hotel Barriera Fouquet's, New York, the US flagship hotel for the French family-owned Group Barriera, which operates a luxury hotel empire that spans the world, including the original La Fouquet's Hotel Barriera, which is just off the Champs-Élysées in Paris. On the corner here we find 452 Greenwich Street. Built in 1819 in a federal style, this was once a factory for the American Steel Wool Company. After renovations in the late 1990s, the building was reverted back to a single-family home with a garage and a 1,500 square foot roof deck. Moving on, we come to our next major celebrity residence, or residences to be more precise. Completed in 1884 in a Romanesque revival style to be a factory and warehouse, 443 Greenwich Street has been converted into a luxury loft apartment building with a 70-foot indoor swimming pool, a 4,000 square foot courtyard and a 5,000 square foot landscaped roof deck. It has a private garage and private elevators, and along with a 24-hour doorman and concierge, this makes 443 nearly paparazzi proof. There is no gym, but there is one right across the street here. On the corner we see the Christina Grajales Art Gallery, which specialises in both contemporary art and masterpieces of the 20th century. Very cool vintage Mustang here. One last look at 443 Greenwich. The former bookbindery has attracted past and present owners that reportedly include Jake Gyllenhaal, Jessica Biel, Justin Timberlake, Harry Styles, Meg Ryan, Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Jennifer Lawrence and Bella Hadid, to name but a few. Next we find the Arts Project International. Established in 1993, it focuses on works by leading artists of diverse international backgrounds. Coming up on the corner across the street we have the Paisley, an upscale 70-seat Indian restaurant with a menu focused on pan-Indian dishes. I'm crossing over to the left to show you this particular street corner. Here at Greenwich and Leigh Streets we see some great examples of the metal awnings that would have covered the loading bays of these warehouses back in the day. These awnings are very synonymous with Tribeca's architectural history, being in nearly all of the photographs taken of the neighbourhood over the years. Moving on we come to La Beo, a 48-seat French restaurant with Japanese influence. They are best known for their multi-course tasting menus. Over on this side, next to Juice Press, an organic juice shop, we have My Gym Tribeca, a gymnastics centre that caters to children from infants up to about 7 years of age. Now we're going to turn left here onto Hoover Street. Up ahead I'm going to show you the former 19th century stables of an iconic American company. That sun-drenched building on the left used to be the two-story stable for the draft horse fleet of the American Express Company. Completed in 1867 in a utilitarian style, the crest for American Express is still up there at the top of the building. That is a cool piece of history. Waiting a minute for the traffic to pass. Now we're going to cycle through a very iconic Tribeca path. The similar styled red brick buildings on either side of the street and across Leigh Street at the end of the block result in a very cool aesthetic look, making Collister Street a long-time popular destination for wedding and graduation photographs, social media posts and the like. Across Leigh Street at 5458 is the former port warehouse building that was completed around 1871 in a German form of Romanesque revival style called Rohrbogenstil. Moving on, we get to the Dietz Lantern Building. Completed in 1887 in a Romanesque revival style, this 9-story factory, would you believe, just manufactured lanterns for horse carriages. We're coming back up to Greenwich Street. In the mid-19th century, this section of the neighbourhood was known as the Farm, which recognised Washington Market's role as a receiving stage for much of the food consumed in Manhattan. It had over 500 vendors and 4,000 farmers' wagons visited daily. Crossing the street here on the right, we see the 10-seat omakase restaurant Sushi Ichimura, operated by the legendary Michelin-star sushi chef Eiji Ichimura. On the corner we have Blue Bottle Coffee, a coffee shop inspired by Japanese culture. Further down the block we find the locally favoured Verve wine shop. On the far corner we see 413 Greenwich Street. Built in 1889 in a utilitarian style, the signage of early tenants tells us that the building at one point was a coffee roaster and supplier of ground spices for wholesale only. The sandwich shop Olives is on the ground floor. Next to that we see Wolfgang Steakhouse by Wolfgang's Furners. The former head waiter at the world famous Peter Luger's Steakhouse in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. This is one of about 20 steakhouses Sverner is involved in worldwide. Very popular. On the right we have the global headquarters for Citibank. Citigroup is also located here. Next, our first stop on the left is Caf, a Scandinavian inspired cafe that roasts its beans right here in New York City at its roaster in Red Hook, Brooklyn. And next to that is Greenwich Street Tavern, a popular sports bar with an elevated version of your traditional American bar food. Up the block you'll find a shoe repair and a barbershop. On the corner there we find Caf's sister shop, Cafe Ora, where you can take a fika, a traditional Swedish break for coffee or tea and Swedish pastries, of course. Then we have the independently owned children's store called the Little Tribeca, which has its origins in the East Hamptons, New York. Next we have Plaza M, a high-end spa that is best known for using natural and organic products. And on the corner here we find Eve's, located in a 200-year-old former Seafarers Inn. It is a modern French restaurant serving up a refined menu with a Moroccan influence. Across the corner is the Greenwich Hotel, an 88-room luxury boutique hotel that has an underground swimming pool, a spa and a gym. One of its partners, the American actor Robert De Niro, has the 6,800 square foot penthouse as one of his New York City residences. Located on the ground floor is Locanda Verde, one of the best restaurants in the neighborhood. This Italian favorite continues to be a great spot for celebrity watching. Across from Locanda Verde is Smith & Mills. This small and quaint restaurant is housed in a former carriage house. Its bathroom is located in an old elevator shaft. Very cool spot. Let's head back up to Greenwich Street. Following World War II, the neighborhood began to decline. As manufacturing moved out of the city and factories and warehouses closed, the area became more industrially neglected and less populated. We have a film shoot going on in the neighborhood today, so I'm going to avoid the street in case I am stopped. No big deal. By the 1960s and 70s, after the departure of many industries, much of the buildings that we've seen today were abandoned, and those attracted artists who illegally moved into them because of the large and expansive loft spaces, continuing a trend that had begun further north in Soho, the neighbourhood I'll be showing you in our next episode. Next, built in 1905 to be a coffee warehouse, since 1990 the ground floor of the B. Fisher building has contained the famous Tribeca Grill restaurant, owned by the legendary restaurateur Drew Newport and the actor Robert De Niro. It is only fitting that the streets here are full of production equipment and personnel, because the upper floors of the Fisher building contain the Tribeca Film Centre, a fully serviced office complex catering to creative professionals in the entertainment business. Here on the corner we have the Benvenuto Cafe, bringing a fresh upscale spin to grab-and-go diner fare, from sandwiches and seafood entrees to hearty burgers and all-day breakfast at a decent price. And it is open 24 hours a day, which is a plus. Next we find American Cut Steakhouse, owned by the Iron Chef winner Mark Forgione. In 2010 he became the youngest chef to win a Michelin star. Next you'll find Il Giglio, which has been serving exquisite Tuscan fare here since 1989. Across the street we get our first glimpse of a historic row of houses. But first, this brick fortress-like tower we see here is one of three that make up the 13-unit Independent Plaza. This is a series of affordable income housing which was built along Greenwich Street in the 1970s, although the rent for these apartments is now more market rate than it was originally intended. What have we got here? Nobody famous that I can see. All the cars seem to be of a 1970 or 1980 vintage, so I look forward to seeing what they are filming. Back to business, we see Imagine Swimming, a school teaching swimming to ages ranging from infants to adults. And up ahead we see part of the BMCC, the Borough of Manhattan Community College. Self-described as one of the most distinctive community colleges in the country, this college, 4 blocks long, offers associate degrees in STEM, business, criminal justice and nursing, among others. And now we come to the historic Harrison Street row houses. These federal-style homes were commonplace for well-to-do families around here until the American Civil War. By the early 1970s, these 9 were all that remained in the neighbourhood and were in major disrepair. Owned by the city and restored in the mid-1970s, they were sold for prices ranging from $35,000 to $75,000. Today, they're worth multi-millions. It'll be interesting to see how the filmmakers hide the wonderful 56 Leonard Street, towering over the neighbourhood there. The Jenga Tower has been described as the most alluring addition to New York City's downtown skyline in decades. I see a vintage New York City yellow cab there, getting ready for filming. Right on the corner we have Zona Mascaleria, with French authentic reasonably priced Mexican food and an extensive mezcal list. That yellow cab just passed Turrier. There on the left, a cool laid-back wine bar. That cab probably is more 80s vintage, maybe. Honestly, that cab could be from the 2000s for all I really know. Moving on, we have a closed store here on the left, and next is a new nail salon. Also very new to the neighbourhood is Teakwood Thai Chop House, which is the more upscale version of its sister restaurant Pier Thai Kitchen, which is uptown in the great neighbourhood of Hell's Kitchen. Just recently opened, it is a huge hit. Crossing Greenwich to show you the Banzini building. Completed in 1899 in a Renaissance and Romanesque revival styles, it was the longtime home of the Banzini Nut Processing Company, best known for being the official supplier of peanuts to Yankee Stadium since 1923. Up next, housed in a former bank, is the design studio and storefront for Joseph Carini Carpets. For over 25 years, the Carini Lang team has been designing carpets at this location and weaving them in Nepal. Back on this side, well, down the block first, and unfortunately nearly closed off, is the excellent Muse Paint Bar, where you can drink and eat and learn how to paint. No previous experience needed. On this side of the street, beside the parking garage, we find Cocoon Tribeca, members only club for families with young children. Next door is New York City's own Van Leeuwen Ice Cream. Sold nationwide, all of their ice creams are made from scratch at their factory in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, maybe 4 miles away. Beside Muse Paint Bar, we have a maternity wear boutique, and then we have a barber shop. Beside that is the cookie shop Chip City, and on the corner we have the coffee shop Cafe Clementine. Now, for over 100 years, the food vendors in the massive Washington market held sway over the neighbourhood until the 1960s, when for logistical and safety reasons the city moved this major food market to Hunts Point in the Bronx. Basically, the streets around here couldn't handle the size of modern day delivery trucks. In a nod to this history, the Washington Market Park was opened in 1983. Only 1.6 acres in size, this is a very popular community space with concerts and movie nights during the summer and jazz evenings in the fall. The playground we see here is one of 3 in this neighbourhood park, which also features a tennis court, basketball courts, a gazebo you can rent, community garden plots and a butterfly garden. The pavement here is where Tribeca's farmers market is held every Wednesday and Saturday all year round. Across in the corner we have a new addition to the neighbourhood, the Asian restaurant upon the palace. The business with the orange awning is Gigino Trattoria. Celebrating 30 years in the neighbourhood, this popular Italian restaurant makes everything to order from breads to pastas. And beside that on the corner is where you will find the store Marquis Caviar. That corner location also has an exclusive fine dining seafood restaurant called Huso. Exclusive as in it has seating for up to 12 people. Now we're finishing in a part of the neighbourhood once known as the Butter, Eggs and Cheese District. In the 1930s and 40s, over 90% of all dairy consumed in metropolitan New York City passed through this one area. Up next is one of the oldest buildings in Tribeca. 188 Duane Street here was originally built in the early 1800s. By the turn of the 20th century, one of its tenants was a tea merchant selling Lapin tea. The kind of tea they use in Ireland is the barely visible promotional line on the painted signage from about 1918. The ground floor now contains a Neely Lowton clothing store. Across the street we find a great little gastropub called the Hideaway, which specialises in craft beers and an elevated bar cuisine. Next to that, Neely Lowton has her men's store. Then we have Walk-in Duane, an Asian fusion restaurant which only opened in July. Next is the famous Duane Park Patisserie. Let me get around here to show you this first. A very popular French bakery. They have delicious and decadent cakes and pastries, handmade right here from scratch. Coming back to the south side of the street, we find the Laughing Man Cafe. This very popular coffee shop is co-founded by the Australian actor Hugh Jackman. It has a great charitable mission, as in the profits from this fair trade coffee company go to support educational programs, community development and social entrepreneurs around the world. A worthy cause supported by your coffee dollars. Now, nearly all of the architecturally ornate buildings we see here on Duane Street were built in the mid to late 1800s. And it is the likes of these historic converted warehouses, along with its cobblestone streets, that have blended to create Tribeca's unique character. This has attracted the rich and famous who have turned the neighbourhood into one of New York City's most desirable to live in. This is where the city's more expensive apartments are located. At 176 Duane over here we have the Craft Studio Tribeca, a very cool art studio for children starting at 18 months with classes and workshops. And they host fun birthday parties too. Next door is the studio for the famous artist Rob Mango, who has been living and working out of here since 1977. On the right we see another Citibank station. Moving on, I'm going to finish up this episode showing you the second oldest park in New York City. Bought for $5 from the Trinity Church in 1797, the small Duane Street Park, although a triangle in shape, is treated like a diamond by the locals, as it plays a very big role in the community, from bringing us shade from the burning sun today to being the centerpiece of Duane Street's regular outdoor dinner parties. The park also hosts a live concert series, and we had 3 more performances coming up before the end of the summer. The last one is September 4th. And we are done. So stay tuned for one final message. Alright, so thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my cycle around Tribeca. If you did, give me a like, leave me a comment, or ask me any question you have about New York City. But more importantly, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss another episode, because next week I'm coming from Soho. See you then.